Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues in organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting back against today's organized crime syndicates. Today, we're joined by Ed Fritz, who serves as the Crime Prevention Supervisor for the Boise Police Department. He's also the chair of ORCAID, that's the Organized Retail Crime Association of Idaho. He plays a leadership role as well in Western States ORCA. We're going to talk about the real coordination between states and various jurisdictions, what that looks like in reality, and why organized retail crime only shrinks when silos disappear. That conversation's coming up right after this word from our sponsor. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. All right, Ed. Hey, thanks so much. Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite.
All right, let's talk about Boise on the front lines. What are you seeing in the Boise area right now when it comes to organized retail crime?
Really, I don't think we're seeing anything that different really than most other larger cities see from that. We still see, a lot of our theft that is driven by addiction and, people going out and stealing just to support habits. We're seeing fencing through pawn shops, through online methods, things that, once again, we see across the nation. I just think we see it a little bit differently here in Boise, in Idaho, based off of a number of pieces, because Boise, Idaho has had ORC, been talking to ORC before ORC ever existed from there. So I think we've been doing things right for a long time, and that has helped us to where we're at today, where we don't see those same smash and grab, those big mob type thefts from there. Given we still get traveling crews come through here, we have an interstate right through next to the city, and so we get the same traveling crews coming through like every other city we have out west from there. And once again, I think because what we built, we want to see it a little bit differently, and so we're a little more apt to be able to respond quicker. We're able to respond more effectively. We're able to hold people here longer. We're able to prosecute things a little bit differently, just with a few decades of work put into what we are today.
It's interesting you mentioned that you've been working on this from before it was actually something really called organized retail crime, and that these things tend to quickly outgrow sort of the city boundaries. Is there anything that our viewers should understand about Idaho geographically, like where Idaho sits in relation to other states, that maybe presents an interesting challenge when it comes to organized retail crime? Or we talk to Arizona and they say, well, this leads into Mexico and into Southern California. How does all that play in Idaho?
It's truly, I think we're just another spot on a roadmap for a lot of these groups from there. And so we'll get folks traveling, from Utah, up from Salt Lake area. Occasionally, depending on which road they hit, they might come through Wyoming from Denver. In there, we've seen groups circle through, make run across Montana and make a quick stop down into Idaho again from there. And so it's the exact same folks that would be even flying into Boise, for example. We have a big airport, not a big airport here, but we have an airport that comes through here with that. And so we see everyone else is going to see from there. So but Boise's been growing. I think we've just seen more of it, or had the potential for more of it. We cut a group a few years back. That's when we were talking to them. They kind of just started showing up, and over a 7-month period, they kept showing up again and again and again until they finally got arrested, brought back to Boise, and we're kind of just understanding, so why Boise? Why us? And it was basically we had grown big enough for them to be a stop on their map, where we had enough of the retailers, we had enough of the resale piece, we had enough for it made it worth their time to come to Boise, Idaho now, just because the size we had grown.
What led to the formation of ORCAID, and how does it really improve intelligence sharing between retailers and law enforcement in the Boise area?
Yeah, ORCAID's been around for about a little over a decade now. We celebrated our 10th anniversary just this past year. And I think it was truly the realization that if we really wanted to grow our efforts in what we've been doing, which we'd have the same blueprint, for year and year and year again, even before I came to the police department, kind of the same blueprint, that we had to really operate differently. Groups were evolving, theft was evolving, fraud was evolving, and if we wanted to continue to be successful, we needed to evolve along with it. And it finally came to the realization with one case that kind of pushed that tipping point that pushed us over the edge. And like so many others, we were very funneled in how we were communicating things out. And so one point person would be taking in so much of the communications, and it'd be up to that one point person to send a lot of that stuff out through screening, through making sure it's the right thing we want to send out to the groups. And so it just happened to be that person was me, and I was off. Well, I was off for the weekend like I always am, but I was paying a little bit less attention to my phone than I normally do. And I sat down one Sunday night at 8:00, kind of just scrolling through my emails, preparing myself for my Monday morning. And I saw an email after email after email from retailers that were very similar in the description of the offenders, similar pictures, similar vehicles. And it's been happening for 2 days already, which typically when that happens, we're at a loss. The group's out of town. There's nothing more we can do. So we got out the information as quickly as we can. And luckily enough, the group was still in town come Monday morning. We had our officers, we had detectives go out and respond, caught the group in the act, which grew from, a carload of people into 12 people we arrested that day from the same group that still happened to be in Boise, Idaho. And that was the piece that if we were lucky and they were still staying in Boise, Idaho, this group was far, far gone, just because we weren't sharing as much as we could. We weren't sharing the right way from there. So it was really that necessity to open up the information sharing, allow retailers to share easier amongst retailers, allow them to share easier to our law enforcement partners on there, to where each one has their policy on how they communicate. Each one has their policy on what they can share. And so just trusting in them to do their part in it, and us doing our part in the follow-up and the response piece from that. And so once we were able to get things through and switch on the light, it was, we saw immediate results, which was great. We saw groups that had come through before being communicated out that much more in real time between the retailers, between law enforcement, and us able to respond to that. We even saw groups that people didn't even know were in the area get followed up on and arrests made, because we were much more free in our conversation. And so it was losing control to gain a much bigger benefit in the end.
When ORC groups move from, say, Idaho to Utah or Nevada to Oregon, I know you're part of the Western States ORCA. So how does Western States ORCA respond when criminals operate regionally and not just locally?
Western States is truly just a collaborative effort, a support effort beyond what so many states, so many areas do for their traditional ORCAs. And so the ORCAs are doing so much of the work behind the scenes in communication in Utah, in communication in Idaho, in communication in Oregon. And it's just a realization that brings us all together, that we're fighting the exact same battle in different areas, oftentimes with those exact same suspects from that. And so it's truly just opening up that communication, that networking, and that much more, and supporting each one of the ORCAs in their efforts. For example, like I said, we get many groups that will travel up from Utah after they make it through Utah, if they make it through Utah, up into Boise, Idaho. And now we truly have, I guess what we describe as a competitive advantage, because we're working with that same group in Utah. We're working with the communication from Utah. And so we're truly expecting it to show up in Boise, Idaho at a certain date and a certain time often from there. And it's worked out very well like that, where it just takes that communication from, the person that is tracking the group up through Utah, like, okay, they just hit this store. And there's been times where we've actually been able to set our watch, look at it, like, okay, I'm going to be at this store at this point in time. And we sit there, watch the vehicle we already knew about, drive into the parking lot, watch the suspects we already knew about, get out of the vehicle, walk into the store, and we're that much more prepared for it. And so it's just realizing we all have the exact same problem, and we'd be silly not to partner together and work together with that.
It's that coordination at a bunch of different levels that seems to be really important. I'm wondering, is there a type of partnership that has to exist for all of this to work effectively, not just between law enforcement agencies in, within a state or within our region, multiple states, but what other kind of partnerships have to exist in order to make you effective in this kind of work?
I think it's truly understanding the difference between a relationship and a partnership when it comes down to it. And so we work with a lot of different people out there we have relationships with, and it's more transactional, I guess, kind of back and forth that goes with it. We show up for this one arrest this one time, they send in this one case this one time from there. But partnership is truly a step beyond that, where both sides are more invested. It's not just between law enforcement agencies, it's not just between retailers. It's everyone being bought into kind of that same framework, that same point of view on that same shared goal with trying to disrupt these organizations, trying to benefit the community because of that. I worked in retail for a number of years before I came to my role here with the Boise Police Department. And so I understand what that line level person that's there watching the cameras, trying to catch shoplifters, trying to build cases has gone through. And I think I hold them to maybe a little bit higher standard just because I did that for so many years. And at the same time, I know what we've done here at our organization for a number of years and the standard they even set for me coming into this role. And so just that whole partnership piece across the board with prosecutors, with the retailers, with other solution providers, with everyone involved, it's so important that we have the trust, we have the communication, we have the collaboration, because when we've seen it work the way it has, and it has so many times, we can achieve so many great things from arrests to prosecutions of groups that may have made it through, they're living at this for many years, but now that we're able to partner together, put these pieces together and share information so freely, be invested in the communication and collaboration, we can truly make a difference.
I want to talk about what retailers can do now to be part of that, sort of a partner in that overall relationship. What makes a retailer a strong investigative partner? Like, what do you love for them to do, and maybe what do you love for them to not do?
There's a lot. Like I said, I hold the retail piece to probably a little bit higher standard, being in their shoes for so many years from that. And I think it goes beyond just one case. It goes beyond just one arrest. It goes beyond that officer showing up that one time for that one time they call us. It's the day-to-day consistency of being able to work together for this. A great example, I won't name any retailers specifically. This is a great example. So they probably wouldn't mind if I mentioned their name with this. But a number of years ago, all the traveling groups who were seeing frauds happen, stolen credit cards, information, stuff going through there again and again. And being able to sit down and talk to that retailer and get them invested in it, not only from a community protection piece, but even just a reputation protection piece. They don't want to be the retailer that took this person's stolen credit card and charged thousands and thousands of dollars for that. And so coming together and talking to that piece, coming to that common understanding that we can work together on something such as this, they were able to do amazing things inside their chain, inside the stores they had in our area. And the second one of these transactions we were looking for was popping up, the cashier was empowered enough to make that phone call to their manager or to the loss prevention person. That the loss prevention person was empowered enough to make that phone call to us. It got to a point where we had one person fly into Boise and drive from the airport, hit one store. As they were leaving the second store, they were being escorted by our officers after that to a patrol car, just because you had that buy-in piece like that. I think the biggest thing that I want retailers to know is just how much of an impact they can have, more than just organized retail crime too, but so many other community problems, so many other community things that we do see every single day to day. We've had recent cases in other agencies that they've just helped solve and help put the missing pieces together into these huge investigations that were truly threats to our entire community, because they have the information, they have the people looking for the exact same people we're looking for in so many other types of crimes. And so being able to have that collaboration and partnership back and forth, it's just, like I said, it's amazing when we see it happening as it truly can.
I'm going to get you out of here on this, but I want to know what makes you optimistic about the general trajectory of the efforts to combat organized retail crime. What gives you hope that we're heading in the right direction and sort of getting this more and more under control?
Man, I think it's just seeing the day-to-day results in across the country, and seeing areas that have been problematic before, seeing solutions happen, and those happening in progress through arrests, seeing our retailers and talking to our retailers and see them being more profitable across the board, not seeing, being in one of those areas where we're seeing retailers get shuttered up because they have loss problems, they have control problems that are just out of control from there. And so it's seeing that we are making that day-to-day effort and just the partnerships from that, and knowing that there's so many good people fighting the good fight across the board, hearing and talking to the other ORCAs as they're having these exact same conversations about how they can work together. It's great to see, and it's going in a great trajectory from there. So I'm very excited for the future where it's leading us to.
Ed Fritz is the crime prevention supervisor for the Boise Police Department and the chair of ORCAID in Idaho. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks for all your efforts fighting back against organized retail crime.
Thank you.
One of the consistent themes we're picking up in the battle against organized retail crime networks collaborate, and law enforcement has to do the same. Ed and his colleagues are helping build that collaboration, doing a great job from Boise in Idaho and across the western United States. We really thank him for joining us and for the work he's doing to make those networks smaller and accountability bigger. And that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, LVT. Don't forget, you should hit that subscribe or follow button so you can catch each new episode. We drop a new one every 2 weeks. You can also find us on X, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. As always, thanks for being with us, everyone, and keep up the good fight.